fish on! Let's see this! Wow!
Hey, do you want to have your own fishing adventure? Well, you've come to the right place because today I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide to catching fish, start to finish. Let's get right into it. Before gearing up, make sure that you get yourself a fishing license. Every state does this a little differently, but I'll go over New Hampshire's license as an example. You can see here that there are different prices for residents versus non-residents. If you aren't sure how often you're going to go fishing, it may make sense to get a one-day temp license, but I always go for the regular full-season license. If you're 68 years or older, you can get a senior license at a discount. Kids under 16 don't need a license at all and can fish for free. You'll also notice that there's a saltwater fishing license too. It might not sound like it makes sense given how little of a coast New Hampshire has, but you can actually use a saltwater license in Maine and Massachusetts too. Once you have the right license in your state, you're ready to gear up. I usually buy my fishing gear at two different stores, the first being Bass Pro Shops. From rods to reels to lures and other outdoor gear, Bass Pro has the best variety of just about any brick and mortar store. You do pay a premium for that, however, so shopping at Bass Pro Shops is more expensive. The store that I buy most of my gear at is Walmart. They don't have as much variety, but you can't beat the prices, which is why I recommend newcomers shop here first. Let's head inside and see what they got. To start, you're going to need a rod and a reel. Walmart does sell combos where you can buy both a rod and a reel as one product. There's nothing necessarily wrong with buying one of these, but I prefer to buy them separately because you can usually get a better bang for your buck. When buying your first rod, do yourself a favor and get one that's 5 feet long. You can go longer, but I wouldn't suggest anything over 6 feet for your first rod. Having a shorter rod makes it much easier to cast accurately, which is really important when you're fishing for the first time. This rod I'm holding right here is an Ugly Stick GX2 Ultralight. It costs around $50. It's not the most sensitive rod, but it's about as durable as you can get for an ultralight, making it a good choice for beginners. This next rod I'm holding here is a Shakespeare Micro Series rod. It costs between $20 and $25, so it is cheaper. It's also an extremely sensitive rod. You cannot beat the sensitivity for the price. That said, it's also an extremely fragile rod. I'm actually on my third Shakespeare Micro rod this year, but I wouldn't be buying it again and again if it wasn't a great rod. I'm not as picky when it comes to buying reels. I don't think they matter as much. When you are getting a reel, just make sure to get one that's on the smaller end. You will have to reline it more often, but once you get the hang of it, that's no big deal. I'm sure that either of these Abu Garcia reels would do you just fine, but I use a Fluger President, which looks a lot like this one here. As far as fishing line goes, you're going to want to go with the heaviest one that both your rod and reel support. Using the gear in this video, I would suggest a 6-pound monofilament like this Trilene XL. I usually use a 4-pound mono on my ultralight setup, but by using 6-pound, you're giving yourself the best chance of recovering your lure if you get snagged up. And trust me, you will get snagged up. Alright, on to lures. The first I'd recommend is an inline spinner like one of these rooster tails. If you've seen any of my fishing videos before, you know just how many fish you can catch with one of these. Try buying a 1/8 ounce or a 1/16 ounce size to start. As far as color goes, I stick to the natural, less flashy ones. I find that I catch more fish when I blend in with my environment, as opposed to standing out with an artificial color. Another must-have lure is the Rapala Floating Minnow. It's really impressive how many fish this thing can catch. I suggest getting one in the F5 size. You can get an F3 or an F7 if you want, but I tend to use F5 the most. One more lure I'd pick up is one of these Berkley pre-rigged atomic tubes. Walmart usually sells them in both 1/16 ounce and 1/32 ounce sizes. If I was just going to get one of them, I'd probably get the 1/16 just because it's easier to cast. But then again, I caught my personal best smallmouth bass off of a 1/32 ounce one, so both of them do a good job of catching fish. It's also worth getting some snap swivels like these. I mostly use swivels just so I can switch out lures faster. If you're using an inline spinner, they can also help reduce line twist. Another thing you should have are some fishing pliers. They make unhooking fish way easier when you're starting off. Even now, I find myself using fishing pliers whenever I have a hard time unhooking a fish. Every now and then I use them to bend hooks back into place too. The last thing I'd suggest is just to get a small case for your lures like this one. You don't need a fully fledged tackle box just yet if you're starting off. I went almost all of last year with just a few of these cases in a Walmart bag. Alright, now we have everything we need to go fishing. Before we hit the water though, we gotta set up our gear, so let's get to it. First thing we gotta do is put some line on our reel. I used a bigger reel and line here just for demonstration. Also, this metal wire right here is called the bail. Make sure you have it flipped open before tying. To tie the line on the reel, we're going to use what's called an arbor knot. Once you have your line out, you can start by tying a simple overhand knot near the end of the line. Next, wrap the line around the spool of the reel and use the tag end to create a loop like this. Now, take the tag end and put it through the back of the loop you just made, pulling the little overhand knot through. Pull both ends nice and tight up against the reel. Finally, cinch the line back and forth against the reel so that the tag end jams up against the other knot. Now, just clip off the excess line on the tag end and you're all set. Now, let's load up that reel. I usually secure the reel in the rod that I'm going to use just to make it a little easier. There should be a place on your rod that you can unscrew to open up space for the reel to go in. Once it's open wide enough, your reel should easily slide in. Remember to tighten it up so that the reel is nice and snug. Now, flip the bail so that it's closed and loosely hold the line against your rod with one hand. As you reel in, the line should easily come off of the spool that it came from and onto your reel. You can make quite the mess if you have too much line though. As it fills up with line, make sure that it doesn't pass the lip on the top of the reel. In this case, I ran out of line before that happened, so I'm all set. At this point, you can open the bail and carry the line through all of your rod guides, which are those little rings along the rod. Your reel might also have a clip that looks like this. You can use it to hold the end of your line down while it's not tied to anything. One more thing you should familiarize yourself with is your reel's drag, which is that little knob on the top. When loosened, line can come out when pulled, even with the bail closed. This is helpful when fighting a big fish. Tightening the drag does the opposite, and a fully tightened drag won't let any line out when the bail's closed. Alright, time to learn how to tie a lure. We're going to be using a very simple knot called the clinch knot. This is a knot that I learned to tie as a kid, and I still use it today. Start off by feeding the line through the eye of the lure. Next, pull the tag end back so that it's aligned with the standing end of the line. Now wrap the tag end of the line around the standing end of the line between 5 and 7 times. I don't think how many times you wrap it matters too much as long as you wrap it at least 5 times. After wrapping, it should look something like this. You'll notice that there's a little loop at the eye of the lure. Take the tag end of the line and put it through this loop. Once it's pulled through, hold onto the tag end with one hand and pull the standing end of the line with your other hand. This should tighten the knot. Trim back the tag end if it's sticking out too much, and you're all set. Alright, we got our license ready, we got our gear set up, and we're ready to go fishing. Wait, where are we going again? Here are a few things to remember when looking for a fishing spot. Wherever you go, make sure that you're allowed to fish there. Even if you're at a publicly accessible spot, some waters limit or restrict fishing, so it's important to check with your local regulations. Here's a perfect example that has everything you should be looking for. It's easily accessible with plenty of parking. It's also a fairly small pond, so you can access more water from the shore than you would with a larger lake. The best part about this spot is that it has a trail along the entire perimeter of the pond, which means that you can fish it from any angle. I'm more of a river guy myself, so that's where I'm going to be fishing today. But if you just head to a small pond that's easily accessible and has a bunch of different places you can cast from, I'm sure it'll have plenty of fish for you to catch.
Alright, so we are out here at the fishing spot. Let's see if we can catch a fish here. When you're at a new spot, it's good to look for areas with structure. I like to think of structure as just anything you could possibly get caught on. So like the lily pads over there, there's some branches and rocks. You can also see that there's a bridge here. Fish like to hang out under bridges sometimes for cover. Alright, so for the lure, we got a Rapala floating minnow, and then we got our rod and reel here. Let's take a cast. Casting is actually really simple. All you have to do is take one finger here, you can hold it in place right there, and then you take your bail, you flip it up, and then you wind back, and then when you go forward, just as you get to the end, you're gonna let go of the line here, and the lure is going to go flying. And when I reel in, that bail clicks right back in and I can reel it back up. Let's take a cast for real now. Got the line back, opening the bail, and cast. Nice. As far as reeling in the lure, every lure is a little bit different and fish are different too. So I would suggest just trying different things. The easiest thing to do is just a steady retrieve, nice and slow. With the floating minnow, it's really nice because you can reel it in straight, you can jerk it like that. You can also just leave it on top. You can reel it in a little bit and then let go, and sometimes they'll hit it right off the top. But I'm gonna take a few more casts here and see if I can catch something. Whoop. And that is what happens when you forget to turn the bail. Remember to do that. Ooh, fish on! I didn't know if I had one or not, but it looks like I do. Nice! Oh, look at that. That is a really tiny bluegill. But hey, this might be what your first catch looks like. And any day that you're catching fish is a good day. Now to unhook the fish. Don't be afraid to use your pliers. In fact, I encourage that you use pliers when you're unhooking fish for the first time. It can really help you out. If I ever struggle to unhook a fish, I go straight for the pliers. In this case, it's really simple. You just want to pull in the direction it came from, kind of pushing in, especially if you have a barb. There, all good. It's at this time, if the fish doesn't just escape on me, I'll take a picture. And finally, we can let this fish go. Thanks for the fun, buddy. Back in the water. Off he goes. That's all there is to it. Let's see if we can catch one more fish at this other spot.
It's coming near. Don't let it go. Fish!
Ooh, fish on, fish on. Let's see what we got here. This one's putting up more of a fight. I'm thinking maybe it's a smallmouth. Whoa, look at that jump. Haha. Let's see what we got here. Oh, awesome.
Largemouth bass.
That's a beautiful smallmouth bass.
Largemouth bass.
This is another easy one, but again, if you ever have any doubts, be sure to use those pliers. And there we go. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a largemouth bass.
Largemouth bass.
Anyways, put up a really good catch, and it was so fun to see it jump in the air like that. Hey, thanks for the great fight. See you later.
I probably should have thrown him out a little bit further, but I'm glad he swam away safely. Well, my outro music's playing, so it's time to wrap this up. I hope that this video helps you have a fishing adventure of your own. If it has, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions too, and I'll do my best to help you out. As always, if you like this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and check out my other videos too if you haven't already. I got a lot of fun fishing adventures on this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.